November 11th, 2012. A neighbor is found with a bullet in his skull. By dawn, police name their suspect, John McAfee, the millionaire who created the antivirus software on half the world's computers. When officers arrive to question him, he's gone. What happens next is unthinkable. He fakes his own death twice, bribes his way out of a Guatemalan deportation cell hours before extradition, escapes the FBI for 18 months on a yacht, taunting them on Twitter with his exact location. Every time they close in, he vanishes. 3 countries issue warrants. Interpol joins the hunt. The US government deploys international resources to catch one man. And every single time, he outsmarts them. This isn't just a fugitive story. It's a masterclass in making the most powerful nation on Earth look like amateurs. 1987, Silicon Valley. John McAfee writes 12 lines of code that will make him a fortune. Personal computers are proliferating, and so is a new threat, the brain virus. The first IBM PC virus spreading through floppy disks like a digital plague. McAfee, a programmer at Lockheed, sees the panic and the opportunity. He writes a detection program in his spare time and names it VirusScan. Within weeks, companies are calling. Within months, he quits Lockheed to sell his software full-time. McAfee Associates is born from the trunk of his car. His genius isn't just technical, it's psychological. In a 1989 interview, he warns that computer viruses will cause companies to near collapse, amplifying public terror precisely enough to drive desperate IT managers to his product. And the strategy works. By 1990, half the Fortune 100 are paying for McAfee antivirus. Revenue hits $5 million annually and doubles every 6 months. John McAfee becomes Silicon Valley royalty. But John despises the throne. Board meetings bore him. Quarterly earnings calls feel like prison. This is a man who got expelled from a doctoral program for sleeping with a professor's daughter, who got fired for arriving high on hallucinogens, who hosted occult ceremonies and workplace sex contests at his company headquarters. In 1993, he cashes out, sells his shares for $100 million, and walks away. He's 48 years old and free. By 2008, the financial crash evaporates most of his fortune. His net worth plummets from 9 figures to $4 million. He decides governments and institutions are parasites designed to drain individual freedom. "I'll never let the state own my life," he tells a reporter. In 2009, John boards a plane to Belize. No extradition treaty, no IRS, and no rules. He buys a beachside villa, then a jungle compound. He hires armed bodyguards, ex-convicts, and local muscle. He builds a makeshift lab to research herbal antibiotics. He surrounds himself with teenage girlfriends. By day, John pilots his ultralight plane over the reef. By night, he throws bonfire parties with automatic weapons displayed like party favors. His business paranoia is curdling into isolation psychosis. He picks fights with gangsters over territory. He butts heads with neighbors over noise. But Belize is not a place where foreigners write their own laws. April 30th, 2012. The gang suppression unit hits McAfee's compound with military precision. Officers in tactical gear storm the property, lining up McAfee, his girlfriend, and his staff against a wall at gunpoint. His dogs, 4 massive mastiffs, charge the intruders. An officer shouts a warning. One dog lunges. A shotgun blast drops the animal mid-stride. "You killed my dog!" McAfee screams, eyes wild. The officers pin him face down in the dirt. They ransack every structure for 6 hours. At the end of the raid, 0 drugs are recovered. The only charge, possessing an unlicensed firearm. They throw him in the piss house, the Belize Central Prison holding tank. He's released the next morning without charges. but the damage is done. John decides the government wants him dead. Meanwhile, Gregory Faull, a 52-year-old expat from Florida, moved to Belize for silence and sunshine. Instead, he got John McAfee as a neighbor. McAfee's 9 dogs roam the beach freely, barking through the night. Faull files complaints. He confronts McAfee directly. "Control your dogs, or I'll take care of them myself." John refuses. The feud simmers. Then, on November 9th, 2012, McAfee's dogs start foaming at the mouth. By dawn, they're dead, poisoned. John is devastated, then enraged. 24 hours later, November 10th, 2012, a single gunshot cracks the night air on Ambergris Caye. The next morning, Sunday, November 11th, a housekeeper finds Gregory Faull face up on his villa floor in a pool of blood. A 9mm round through the back of his head, execution style. His laptop and cell phone are missing. Belize police immediately attempt to question Faull's volatile neighbor. When officers arrive at McAfee's compound around noon, they find the gate open and the house abandoned. John saw them coming. He grabbed his girlfriend Samantha and vanished into the jungle. The man who once protected millions of computers is now the prime suspect in a homicide. John doesn't run blind. Within 6 hours, he and Samantha are moving through a network of hideouts in the Belizean interior. Abandoned warehouses, sympathetic locals' homes, a fishing shack on a mangrove river. Police and soldiers sweep the district with dogs and helicopters. They set up roadblocks on every highway. But John stays a ghost. November 14th, 2012. Under cover of darkness, McAfee boards a small fishing boat on Belize's southern coast. He pays the captain $2,000 in cash for an illegal crossing into Guatemala. At 3 a.m., they land at a deserted beach. By sunrise, they're in Guatemala City, but he can't resist the spotlight. With Faull's murder dominating international headlines, John decides to control the narrative. He contacts Vice magazine through encrypted email. The Vice editor and a photographer fly to Guatemala and spend 2 days with him. John grins through a scraggly beard. They post photos and a triumphant blog update. The article goes viral. But he just made the biggest error. Within hours of posting, a hacker tweets, "John, I found you. Check your photos' EXIF data." The picture Vice published contains GPS metadata, exact coordinates of the hotel. His media stunt just turned into a catastrophic blunder. December 5th, 2012. Guatemalan police storm the Villa Royale Hotel. McAfee is in the lobby talking to his lawyers when officers surround him. Handcuffs snap on. Cameras flash. The charge? Illegal entry. The consequence? Deportation to Belize within 48 hours. For John, Belize is a death sentence. December 6th, 2012. 1 day after his arrest. Locked in a detention cell, McAfee collapses to the floor, clutching his chest. "Mi corazón," he gasps, turning pale. Guards panic. An ambulance rushes him to a Guatemala City hospital. News breaks worldwide. John McAfee has suffered 2 heart attacks in custody. 48 hours later, doctors announce he's stable. No heart damage detected. John smirks at the press. "Of course I didn't have a heart attack." He later admits he faked it, hyperventilated and held his breath to spike his blood pressure readings. The stunt bought his lawyers time, and in that chaos, Guatemala's government takes the path of least resistance. They deport John McAfee, not to Belize, but to the United States. John just checkmated an entire nation. December 12th, 2012, Miami International Airport. John McAfee walks off the plane, disheveled, unshaven, and victorious. Federal agents question him briefly, but with no U.S. charges pending, they release him. January 2013. John marries Janice and tries domesticity. The experiment lasts 4 months. He's bored senseless. By summer, he produces a viral YouTube video mocking the software that still bears his name. He announces a presidential run in 2016. He polls at 0%, but generates headlines. By 2018, he's found his next act, cryptocurrency evangelist. He lives on a 75-foot yacht, equipped with satellite internet, an armory of firearms, and Janice as first mate. But John hasn't filed a tax return since 2010. January 2019, a federal grand jury in Tennessee secretly indicts McAfee on 8 counts of tax evasion. A source tips John off. Rather than surrender, he fires up his yacht's engines and disappears into the Caribbean. He tweets a photo of himself on deck, rifle in hand. "Today, I left the US. I'm freer than ever." What follows is an 18-month maritime game of cat and mouse. Every few days, a new harbor. Every few days, a new taunting tweet. July 24th, 2019, Puerto Plata, Dominican Republic. McAfee's yacht docks for refueling. Local authorities swarm the pier. They board the vessel and detain him on suspicion of illegal firearms. But after 4 days of negotiations, the Dominican Republic releases him without charges. John raises a glass of rum as the yacht pulls away. But the net tightens. In October 2020, perhaps exhausted, John does something uncharacteristic. He stops running. He and Janice rent an apartment near Barcelona, Spain. On October 5th, 2020, he heads to Barcelona's El Prat airport. At check-in, a passport scan flags his name. Within minutes, Spanish police surround him. After years of high-seas evasion, John McAfee is arrested at the request of the U.S. Department of Justice. The game is over. June 23rd, 2021. Brian's 2 prison, Barcelona. John McAfee, 75 years old, sits in a concrete cell awaiting extradition to the United States. He's been locked up for 8 months. Through his lawyers, he manages sporadic tweets. In one, he writes, "If I hang myself, a la Epstein, it will be no fault of mine." The reference is unmistakable. On June 23rd, 2021, 1 p.m., the Spanish National Court signs John McAfee's extradition order. Within the hour, a court officer delivers the news. John is informed he'll be transferred to U.S. custody imminently. He calls Janice. "I love you. I'll call you this evening." But there is no evening call. At approximately 7 p.m., guards conducting a routine check find John McAfee hanging from a bedsheet in his cell. Paramedics arrive within minutes. They pronounce him dead at 7:23 p.m. He was 75 years old. Caught at last, but never tried. Janice publicly insists John was not suicidal, that he was upbeat in their last conversation, that the timing is too convenient. Spanish authorities conduct an autopsy. The investigation rules it suicide. But conspiracy theories flood the internet. Did John have files on powerful people? Was he silenced? Or did he orchestrate one final trick? The most tragic possibility. The man who vowed never to yield simply made the only exit left on his terms. Here was a man who built an empire on fear, who turned paranoia into profit, who fought the law for a decade and mostly won. He once said, "It's better to live one day as a lion than 1,000 years as a lamb." And whatever you think of John McAfee, whatever questions remain unanswered, he lived that philosophy to its absolute extreme. This is Field. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.